Hello and welcome. A couple of days ago, a friend of mine gave me some apples and I sliced them up and I'm leaving the skins on them and I'm going to use them. I used to make a dish called pork Normande. So I used those apples and I bought some pork chops, which we're going to cut into strips and fry up with some onions and some herbs. And then I busted into my box of fresh pasta sheets in my freezer, and we are going to make Pappardelle pasta to toss up with our pork Normande, apples, onions, gravy, pork, herbs, and tossed with Pappardelle that we're going to make. I used to do it all the time with the pasta sheets. So let's get it done. It's going to be fun. We're going to slice our boneless pork into strips the long way because the pasta is going to be long. Strips are going to be like this. Our pork is all stripped up and we're going to season our pork strips with some salt and pepper. I don't have any gloves, so I'm going to try to use tongs. Or you know what? I think I'll just use my hands and wash my hands and we'll start over. That'll coat them better. You want to make sure both sides, all sides get coated. Now I'm going to go wash my hands and we're going to move on. We have a skillet over medium-high heat, 2 tablespoons of butter, tablespoon of oil to keep the butter from burning, and now in are going our pork strips. Let's sear them up. And when they get browned around the edges, we're going to flip them over and sear the other side too. Time has come to flip over our pork strips. As you can see, they look cooked on the edges. And apparently, this side of the burner is hotter than this side of the burner. So I'm going to turn this pan around so the other ones can get crisped up like these. In my garden, I had some rosemary, sage, and thyme. And I'm going to chop those up and mix them together, and that's going to be the seasonings for our pork Normande. All chopped up, fragrant, and ready to use. Our pork is done. The strips are temping up to 165. And now it's time to remove them from the pan and transfer them to a plate and set them aside. Because we have more ingredients to cook. I'm going to reduce the heat to and here are our beautiful seared up pork strips. I have reduced the heat to just below medium, and we've got half of the sweet onion sliced up. That's going in first. And now comes our apple slices. I cut these up ahead of time, so I put them in lemon juice. So we're going to try not to put too much lemon juice in here, but leave that in the pan. And incorporate the onions and the apples together. We're going to season them up with a little bit more salt and pepper. A sprinkle of nutmeg. Incorporate those seasonings into our fruits and vegetables. And we're going to continue these, and flip them over. We're going to continue cooking these until they get slightly softened, and we're going to continue on. Our apples and onions are starting to soften up, and the next thing that's coming in is our fresh herbs, about 2 tablespoons. And mix them together. Cook them for about 5 more minutes. While our onions and apples continue cooking, we're going to start making our pappardelle out of these pasta sheets. You want to keep the other ones wrapped up so they don't dry out. I hate to do them one at a time, but anyway, I hope they come out pretty even. Nice, fresh, wide pappardelle pasta. It's now time to add some chopped fresh garlic, about a tablespoonful. And mix it in. We're going to cook this for 1 more minute, and our apples and onions will be ready. Our salted pasta water is just about reached a boil, and then we're going to cook our pappardelle. We have reached a full boil, and here are our pappardelle strips going in. These are fresh pastas, so we don't need to cook these for too long. We don't want to drop them on a hot burner. And after a few minutes, we will get some herbs. That's all right. It's all going to be mixed together in the end. We'll drain these and then we'll finish up. It is now time for a sprinkle of all-purpose flour. We're going to create a roux out of these vegetables and make our sauce. Incorporate that flour into our vegetables and fruit and herbs, etc., etc., etc. Cook them for a few minutes to get rid of the starchiness of the flour. Our flour is well incorporated, and now here comes a cup of beef broth mixed with a cup of chicken broth, because it's pork, so I didn't want it to be too beefy. Let's see if that's enough, because there's more juice coming in. So we're going to mix that together, bring this to a boil, and wait for our sauce to thicken up. And we'll see how that goes. We have reached a boil, and our sauce is thickening up nicely. And now it's time to add some apple cider. Almost a cup. Stir that in and bring it back up to a boil and see how our sauce is thick or too thin, or we can always thicken it back up again or thin it back out again. And I believe our pasta is cooked, so it's time to drain it. Turns out I was right. Very al dente pappardelle pasta is. Beautifully cooked. Pull out this last piece. Put a butter in our saucepan. And add our drained pasta back in. Toss it around to coat it with the melted butter. And set it aside. Looking so good, can't wait to eat it. Our sauce is at a good consistency. Now we're going to add our pork strips back in. cook them till they're warmed through. And we're going to add in our pasta and serve up our pork Normande. I'm going to add just a little more of the beef and chicken broth because this big fat pasta is going to absorb a lot of this sauce. So I don't want it to be too dried out. I don't know if I'm going to even use all of this pasta, but we'll put it in and we'll see where we go. All heated through and good consistency. And now it's time for our pasta. We're at medium-low because everything's pretty hot. Let's see where we go. This might be enough. Let's get it incorporated and see where we go. Our pork Normande is very well mixed up, looking good, smelling great, and now we're going to serve it up and give it a taste. Here's our pork Normande in a shallow bowl, and before we serve it, I'm going to garnish it up with a little sprinkle of those fresh herbs that we used just to give it some little color. I don't want much, but I think it'll look pretty. And it does. And now we're gonna give it a taste. Thank you for joining me while I used my Apple gift and made my favorite pork Normande and used those fabulous fresh noodles to make pappardelle. And this is what we look like. And now we're gonna take a bite and love it up. I got some on a fork, all the ingredients, and now we're going in. It's been a really long time since I made pork Normande, and I'm really glad I was inspired to do it because it was well worth it. And we'll see you again soon.